good. 2 lessons in, so we'll see how it goes. Indeed. All right, well, we are continuing our study of Psalms, our second class. We took a break in between to study with Josh for a while, but now we're into our second section, and we are, last week we studied Psalms 90. This week it was nice and easy. We're going right over to chapter 91. So Psalm 91 is where we'll be this morning. Last week we studied Psalm 90, which was entitled Our Dwelling Place, talking about, the Lord being a structure, a comfort, specifically in the context that it was a prayer of Moses. And going from one psalm that was pretty clear on who the author was to Psalm 91, which the study book, in its own words, says, "Not since Psalm 2, chapter 2, have we come across a psalm that defies attempts in the superscriptions to identify an author, place the psalm in some circumstance in an author's life, or say what it was written for, or say anything at all about the psalm for that matter." There have been Bible historians and literature studiers that have been able to mostly place most of the Psalms to either some author, to a time in history, or just there have been references that have helped us to kind of know what the Psalm was written for, or who it was for, or what situation it was for. Literally in not 9 Psalms has been that case, except for Psalm 2 and now this one. They have, up to this point, I looked into it a little further, they have no idea who could have written this, when it could have been written, what it was written for, and just there is no historical or cultural references in this that could even give a slight hint as to what this is for. Just a little interesting aside. And because oftentimes we start the study with, oh look, this is a Psalm of David, or a song of the sons of Korah, or someone like that. But no, that very specifically, the book wanted to note that there is no anything of how we can place where or what this is. And so going into that, let's get into Psalm 91. Our first section, if someone would read it, is verses 1 through 6. Verses 1 through 6.
He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will abide in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say to the Lord, my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. For it is he who delivers you from the snare of the trapper and from the deadly pestilence. He will cover you with his pinions, and under his wings you may seek refuge. His faithfulness is a shield and a bulwark. You will not be afraid of the terror by night, or of the arrow that flies by day, of the pestilence that stalks in darkness, or of the destruction that lays waste at noon.
All right, thank you very much. So starting off here, we see what is a pretty common kind of topic for authors in the Bible, especially in Psalms, to talk about. Just in verse 1 kind of sums up what we're going to be talking about. He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. Continues on, I will say of the Lord, he is my refuge and my fortress. Brings to mind the song, A Mighty Fortress is Our God, which originally the lyrics are attributed to Martin Luther, the guy, 99 Theses on the Catholic Church door. In music history class, we actually heard A Mighty Fortress is Our God being sung in German, and I've never heard a more aggressive and punchy sounding hymn, but maybe that's just the structure of the German language. But in that time, it was much more of a hymn that was meant to portray a strength. A mighty fortress is our God. Here it says, he is my refuge and my fortress, my God, in him I will trust. That those who dwell in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. I thought it was interesting, it talking about abiding in the shadow of the Almighty. Oftentimes you don't think of shadows as being a very secure. Shadows tend to come and go. I mean, literally, depending on the time of the day, you might have a very long shadow, or if it's noon and you're standing just outside, you don't technically have a shadow. But here we see that even the shadow of the Almighty is a comfort. And in the same way, I think of the way that they describe the shadow of the Almighty here, I almost think of the shade of a tree. How, shade is just a tree shadow. And yet, whenever it is a hot, sunny day, and you step into the shadow, it feels like you're standing in a completely different place, even though you've just gotten out of the direct sunlight. And so here, as it talks about taking comfort in the shadow of the Almighty, that, just reading from verse 3, surely he shall deliver you from the snare of the... Mine says fowler, I think yours said trapper, is that right, Patsy? And from perilous pestilence. He shall cover you with his feathers, and under his wings you shall take refuge. His truth shall be your shield and buckler. You shall not be afraid of the terror by night, nor the arrow that flies by day, nor the pestilence that walks in darkness, nor the destruction that lays waste at noonday. The author is doing a really good job of using his metaphors to work together. Because, like it says, that those who dwell in the place of the Most High shall abide in the shadow of the Almighty. And yet, in verse 6 there, what time does it say that the destruction that lays waste is coming? Noon. Remember, we just talked about whenever it's noon, you don't have a shadow because the sun's directly overhead. Noontime is usually the hottest part of the day. And so the author here is building that image of the Lord gives us that shade, that the shadow is not only protecting us, but also is shielding us from any harmful or uncomfortable things that may be assailing us at noonday. He uses the image of a shield or a buckler just being a different kind of shield, different shape of shield. But all these images of protection, of covering us under his feathers, after just in verse 3 they're talking about the snare of the fowler. A fowler is just a hunter who specifically hunts fowl. So ducks, geese, things like that. And then the very next verse talks about covering us with his wings. That whatever threat might be assailing us, that the Lord is a protection from that. If it's harsh rays of sun, that we are covered in his shade. If it's a hunter specifically seeking to hunt us out, that he will cover us with his wings. My God, in him I will trust. Not even the pestilence that walks in the dark, or as it says there in verse 3, he shall deliver you from the snare of the fowler and from the perilous pestilence. That's some fun alliteration there for you. But again, the shadow of the Almighty is a powerful thing. And if the shadow alone is powerful enough to keep us safe, how much more comforting is it that God keeps his hand upon us? Sometimes it's hard to notice, sometimes it's hard to keep in mind, but the fact that even the shadow that the Lord casts is enough to protect us, it's very comforting to know that he oftentimes is directly protecting us with his hand. Any other thoughts here? Yeah.
His shadow doesn't change.
Right.
It's the same, whereas most shadows are very
Right. Yeah. Even like it says, whenever it says, nor the destruction that lays waste at noonday. At noonday, there's not supposed to be shadows, and yet God casts one anyway. Yeah, he is the constant. He is the wing that is always open, the shield that it never breaks, and yeah, the shade that is always there. Good thought. Any other thoughts before we move on? All right, so then moving on, if someone read verses 7 through 13. Here, our next section, 7 through 13.
1,000 may fall at your side and 10,000 at your right hand, but it shall not approach you. You will only look on with your eyes and see the recompense of the wicked, For you have made the Lord my refuge, even the Most High your dwelling place. No evil will befall you, nor will any plague come near your tent. For he will give his angels charge concerning you, to guard you in all your ways. They will bear you up in their hands, that you do not strike your foot against a stone. You will tread upon the lion and cobra, the young lion and the serpent you will trample down.
All right, thank you. So here, the author is using more imagery. It's also interesting, the study book calls this an evangelistic psalm, and the more that we read into it, it very much is, because we see that at first it starts, kind of general, he who dwells shall abide, and then it kind of turns more personal. I will say, my God, in him I trust. But then, as early there as verse 3, it turns into you. The main pronoun becomes you. Surely he shall deliver you, he shall cover you, under his wings you shall take, his truth shall be your shield. And here he continues on that, it starts off, 1,000 may fall at your side and 10,000 at your right hand, but it shall not come near you. In this case, it doesn't specifically say, but the researchers kind of think they're referring to either like arrows. When it refers to the 1,000 that fall at your side, it's arrows or some kind of weapon that is making attacks at you. 1,000 may fall at your side and 10,000 at your right hand, but it shall not come near you. That image is very powerful. You think of when arrows are raining down or when attacks are coming our way, that we need the shield to block those attacks. But remember, even though it talks about that God's comfort is like a shield and buckler, God is so powerful that the attacks that come don't even need to be blocked. It says that they will not even come near you. There in verse 8, only with your eyes shall you look and see the reward of the wicked. That's some deep wording there, if you think about it. Only with your eyes shall you look upon the reward of the wicked. Odd that it talks about all this comfort of things, and yet it talks about the reward of the wicked. But what's the catch here? Why is this verse kind of? It seems to mean one thing, but then it kind of turns it around. If you think about it, the only time where we're going to see the wicked rewarded is with our eyes, meaning that it's only physically that we see, and it's only an earthly reward that we view the sinful rewarded. That the reward of the wicked is only seen with the eyes. It's not going to be seen later on whenever the second coming comes. Yeah, I just think that's a really cool kind of double meaning that the verse has. Because you have, continuing verse 9, because you have made the Lord, who is my refuge, even the Most High, your dwelling place, no evil shall befall you, nor shall any plague come near your dwelling. For he shall give his angels charge over you and keep you in all your ways. The author is acknowledging that there will be hard things that come up. Just like Jesus said, just like Paul says in his letters, that just because you make God your fortress doesn't mean that the fortress won't be attacked. It doesn't mean that there aren't going to be hardships, that there will be bad things that happen in life. But what the author wants to make important here is that nothing that comes your way is impossible to overcome. That even though bad things do happen, it's not because the Lord allowed something through and was like, well, yeah, I guess I'll let this thing happen to him. Whenever it says, no evil shall befall you, nor shall any plague come near your dwelling, what it really means more of is that God is still there. That we are tested, often we have bad things happen because that is Satan wanting us to think that God has abandoned us. That the fortress walls have fallen, that there is no longer anything protecting us from the evil of Satan and his temptations. But the author comforts again by saying, for he shall give his angels charge over you to keep you in all your ways. In their hands they shall bear you up, lest you dash your foot against a stone. If you remember, whenever Jesus is taken by Satan whenever Jesus goes into the wilderness and Satan tests him, one of the kind of temptations that Satan makes of Jesus says here, he takes him to a high place and he says, here, throw yourself off and the angels will catch you. And that phrase there, lest you dash your foot against a stone, is something that Satan says to Jesus. Throw yourself off this high place, for the angels will catch you and not even let you dash your foot against a stone. That we don't know if this is a direct reference to that story, or if it is something perhaps that is written very early on that Satan kind of uses, that he would know that Jesus would remember that writing of. We don't know for certain, but here the author uses it as a comfort. Is, yes, we know that if Jesus were to jump off that high place that the angels would catch him, but that wasn't the point. The point wasn't to show Jesus' power, that Jesus forsook Satan for even asking that, because I'm not going to jump through your hoops just so you can feel like you have some authority over me. That Jesus was showing that, yes, if I wanted, like the song we sing, Jesus could have called 10,000 angels to destroy the world instead of him going to the cross, but that wasn't the point. And here the author gives us comfort in saying that same protection that Jesus knows that he was afforded by the angels of heaven, we also have in the same way. For he shall give his angels charge over you to keep you in all your ways, and in their hands they shall bear you up, lest you dash your foot against a stone. And you shall tread upon the lion and the cobra, the young lion and the serpent you shall trample underfoot. That the beasts of the earth will be below us, even so, even though these, at that time, lion and cobra was a pretty big threat. A lion was a large, intimidating beast that we read stories of David fighting when he's protecting his sheep. And the lion is just an image that is used often as like one that consumes, that destroys. And then the cobra, while being less physically imposing, we well know that certain species of cobra are some of the most venomous snakes in the world. And so even these two images of very imminent danger, we won't even have to worry about, because as we are lifted up by angels, you're set down, and those are just things under your feet that you won't have to worry about. And so here with 7 through 13, we just get lots of images of these things that assail us might be bad, but it's not something that we'll even have to worry about. That it won't even be worth having anxiety over. And I think the fact that Satan quotes this, whether he's quoting it or it is quoted later on, is a good indicator that Satan oftentimes doesn't even expect the bad things to harm us or to really physically cause us problems, but then Satan wants us to agonize over the fact that there are bad things happening, that there are threats out there. He doesn't necessarily think that the lion will actually bite our foot off, but he wants us to sit there and to be so anxious, oh, well, there's bad things happening, there's something that's waiting out there to get me, that there's something that is going to happen if I go out and I, try and preach the good word to people out there, that if I try and profess my faith, that something bad's going to happen to me. That he wants us to be so wrapped up and worried that someone won't listen to us if we try and share the Bible, or that we'll be persecuted, that we'll be so worried about it that we'll just keep it in. And that the threat of a lion and a snake at our doorway means that we never leave the house. Not literally, but if you get what I'm talking about. That the author wants us to realize that those things are not even worth worrying about. Because even if, the word is rejected, even if people don't listen at first, the word is out there. And as we read in many different verses, that just the word alone sometimes has the power to change hearts and minds. That even if you don't remember a chapter from a specific book, that it might come up again later and have some meaning to you. And that's a pretty common thing among just literature or songs or any kind of work of media, is even if you don't get something at first, sometimes it just sticks with you. And the Bible has a very powerful way of doing just that. Yeah, Patsy. Hmm.
Depending on what you're going through,
Yeah.
or what has happened to you. You know, so
Yeah, but when I was a kid and when I was growing up and getting into high school and things, when it talks about God being a father, taking care of us, and all those images, I always read that and went, oh yeah, that's cool that God's the father. But now that I have my own kid, I'll say it this way: I made the horrible, horrible, horrible mistake of thinking I'm going to watch Finding Nemo with my daughter. That'll be fun. Look at the fun fish. This is a really pretty movie. And, she won't get it at first, but it's a cool movie to watch. By the middle of that movie, I was sobbing. Just ugly tears, Niagara Falls kind of crying of this movie that I just thought was like, oh, look at the pretty fish. Oh, it's funny because that fish can't remember anything. The idea of losing a child hits so much harder now that I have a child. Isn't that crazy? But yeah, depending on where you are in life, certain things mean more. And yeah, the same way with the Bible, that, yeah, when we're young, we just don't naturally worry about things as much. That doesn't mean that little kids don't have worries, but when you're an adult, you are more hyper aware of more things to be anxious about. You have kind of that more foresight that we talked about last week, that kind of like seeing what's coming is both a blessing and a curse. That you know that there are good things coming, but then you also are more anxious about, well, what if this meeting doesn't go well? What if this thing at work doesn't go well? What if my kid doesn't like me? Yeah, all these things have different meanings as we grow. And yeah, the author here is giving us many, many images of just to help us kind of understand and keep in mind how powerful this is. Yeah, great thought, Patsy. Any other thoughts? All right, well then we'll move on to our final section here. If someone would just read the last few verses, 14 through 16.
Therefore I will deliver him. I will set him securely on high, because he has known my name. He will call upon me, and I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will rescue him and honor him. With a long life I will satisfy him and let him see my salvation.
All right, thank you. And so here we see a total perspective change. We go from one person talking to another about the comforts of the Lord, and the author actually switches to the perspective of God himself. Because he has set his love upon me, important capital M there, me, therefore I will deliver him. I will set him on high, because he has known my name. He shall call upon me, and I will answer him. The author here is giving his own perspective to someone else, but then in a very, careful way, because it's dangerous when we start to put the words into the mouth of God. But here I think the author very much sticks to what he has been taught and makes inferences not based on what he thinks God would say, but what he knows, the kind of things that God comforts us with. I will set him on high because he has known my name. I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him and honor him. With long life I will satisfy him and show him my salvation. That God is not this silent force that sits over us, is not just a wall that sits around us, and you can see the wall, but the wall doesn't talk to you and tell you, I got you, I'm protecting you. There's attacks out there, and I'm not going to let them through. God is constantly making himself plain in more intangible ways, in ways that are not directly things we can see, feel, touch. But the author here wants us to remember that whether it be prayer, whether it be worship, whether it be learning more about His Word, that God is always open to communication. We just have to find a way to understand it. And it's in this section where I really kind of, throughout this study of Psalms, I've kind of had secular songs and hymns that have come up that have kind of like gone parallel with this. Obviously, Psalms is one of the most referenced books in our song book because Psalms is just a literal song book. We don't necessarily know the tunes, but these are poems meant to be read dramatically or performed with instruments. Oftentimes, in the title of the psalm, it'll say like meant to be played with the lute or the 7-string or all these various instruments or choirs for the choir director of this and this and that. But here we're seeing that in a way there is a lot of reference to comforting, and yeah, when we think about the Psalms, it's good to think about these are lyrics. This is meant to be read to others. This is meant to be read as entertainment or comfort to an audience. And over the years, yeah, they've been compiled into what we now know as Psalms. But any other thoughts about this last section before we kind of start wrapping up? Yeah.
I was just thinking when you were talking about the good and the bad, about that scripture that says the rain falls on the just and the unjust. I mean, we're not promised that we're not going to have bad things happen.
Yeah.
He promised that He'll be there to pick us up and brush us off.
Yep. And yeah, the psalmist writing from the perspective of God, talking about the fact that since He has known my name, I will set Him on high. That the difference is that we have an umbrella. That we have someone who can make the clouds go away, who can stop the rain. And in the same way, we are also called to help others also get out of the rain. That we're not just supposed to sit under our little alcove and go, man, this is nice, I like this is good. It's okay to feel that comfort that comes from being sheltered from the storm, but we're also meant to go out and help others get out of the storm who are stuck in the storm. So many hymns come to mind. Does your anchor hold in the storm of life? Let the lower lights be burning. Some poor, fainting, struggling seaman you may rescue, you may save. Being a person who not only enjoys the comforts of being sheltered from the bad times that come, but also being someone else who, while holding on to the anchor that is God, we can reach out a hand and pull someone else up out of the storm. Yeah, good thought. Any other thoughts? Yeah.
In 15, where it says, I will rescue him and honor him, doesn't that show that, like, in cases, this happens in everyday life where people will doubt or try to get you to doubt,
Right.
or say that's just made up stuff, things like that. That's where we're rescuing His name and honoring Him by actually defending Him.
Yeah.
Which shows that not only are we feeling the delight of being in His shadow, etc., throughout this, but we're also accepting the responsibility to defend what He does for us,
Yeah.
who He is.
Yeah, and I like that it uses the terms deliver and honor in the same sentence, because oftentimes we almost feel awkward, or it feels wrong to ask for help. It's hard to ask for help sometimes because we think that it's admitting that you can't do it, or that you don't understand it, or something like that. But here in the same sentence there, it says that God will deliver and honor. It wants us to realize that being helped, that being saved is not something to worry about. That if, in God's case, that salvation comes free as long as you
repent. As long as all we have to do is come to him and he will accept us. That it won't be a begrudging, like, well, you sure got in at the last second there. That was a close one, huh? That's not how God views salvation. That's how we shouldn't either. That we are delivered and honored in the same breath. That no matter what age, no matter where we come from, no matter, all those things, that salvation is a celebration. That we talk about, the angels rejoicing in heaven when someone is baptized. That's not, it doesn't matter if it's in a pool, in a river, in a lake. I love that Baxter gives all those examples of different people being baptized, because we see all different types of baptisms in all kinds of different places. And one specific place doesn't make it more of a baptism than the other. It's what's in the person's heart. It's them making that decision to repent of their sins and to be washed clean. Yeah. Yeah, any other thoughts about this last section? All right, so here at the end, as we're wrapping up, just 91 is such a cool, vivid psalm, how we get to see so many different images of how we are comforted, but also we get a little bit from the mouth of God himself, not in the literal sense, but in a way that we can be assured that God is watching over us and that God is the one who gives us comfort. That here, as if we kind of think about, this is one person talking to another about how great it is to be saved by God, that it also comes with hopefully the joy of the person's answer being to become a Christian. That we don't get to know the answer, that whatever this, if this was a letter to someone or if this was directly to someone, but we can rejoice in the fact that it's being spoken, that the good word is being preached. All right. Well, I talked about that, different songs come to mind whenever I think about, whenever I am studying these Psalms. And I don't know if I'll do this every week, and this won't be like a perfect analogy, but I just wanted to kind of talk about the songs that came to mind whenever I was reading through this. And some of these will be a bit dated. My music library tends to kind of be a wide arc, but when I was reading through this psalm, the song that kept coming to my mind was Bridge Over Troubled Water by Simon and Garfunkel. For my money, one of Simon and Garfunkel's best songs. That's just my opinion. But just some of the lyrics here that I'll read you that kind of crossed over in my mind. When you're weary, feeling small, when tears are in your eyes, I will dry them all. I'm on your side when times get rough and friends just can't be found. Like a bridge over troubled water, I will lay me down. Like a bridge over troubled water, I will lay me down. When you're down and out, when you're on the street, when evening falls so hard, I will comfort you. I'll take your part. When darkness comes and pain is all around, like a bridge over troubled water, I will lay me down. I like that the singer here is not only offering comfort for someone who is going through a tough time, but the singer becomes both the person giving comfort and a literal, like it talks about, I will lay me down a bridge over troubled waters. They will be the bridge. It kind of brought to mind the image of, whenever you see in old-timey kind of movies, there's a puddle and someone will lay down a jacket so that the person can walk across without getting their feet wet. That's kind of what brings to mind, is giving up a bit of yourself so that someone else can have a bit of relief, that they can have a bit of an easier time, that we can be the bridge over troubled waters to help people find salvation. That there will be roadblocks, there will be things that get in our way, there will be evenings that fall so hard, but we can be comforted and we can comfort others, like a bridge over troubled waters. Any other final thoughts? All right, well, we're done a little bit early, but not too bad. Thank you all for a wonderful class. If you want to read ahead, the psalm for next week will be 95. Skipping a few there, but Psalm 95 will be next week. Thank you all.